Welcome back to Gaming Top Down. Today I'm continuing my series going over every game in my collection, this time the games that start with the letter M, breaking them down into different categories of games I haven't been able to play yet, games I'm thinking about purging, and my favorite games that start with the letter M. So without any more talk, let's jump right in. Okay, first up are the games I haven't been able to play yet. And first is a little card game called Midnight Brunch. I got this one on clearance probably a year ago. And yeah, just haven't been able to play it yet. I believe it is a card game with a kind of similar vibe to games like 21, Blackjack, whatever we're calling it today. But it's a pretty simple game where each card has a different monster theme. It might be a werewolf or Frankenstein or a ghost. And those numbered cards get to do things, and certain ones are worth different amounts of points. Haven't even been able to read the rule book all the way through yet, but hoping to play Midnight Brunch sometime soon. Next up is one I do think I will play very soon. It is Moon River. King Domino was a few videos ago and was one of the first kind of tile laying games that I got when I started getting into hobby board gaming, and Moon River is the latest game in that King Domino line. In this one, you are taking two different pieces of a domino and then connecting them before you put them out in your farm. And so you've got a little more agency there with how you build the dominoes that you are building out. And I believe your farm is bigger in this game as well. So it takes a little bit longer. It says 45 minutes on the box, where you can play base King Domino in about 15 or 20. So there's a bit more game here. You can also steal things from each other, so it's a little bit meaner. And you have to kind of manipulate and move your cows around to the different land categories in order to score them. And you can get different, I think they're called ranchers or cowboy pieces as well. So there's a bit more going on, but the main hook is that you get to connect two halves of a domino to create the farm that you want in that way. So I am excited to try Moon River. Next is one I've had for a little bit, and I think I will love it. Just haven't had the right or big enough group probably come over. That is Mind Management. This is a hidden movement game where one player plays as a person trying to escape this kind of spy group. I can't remember the name. It might even be Mind or something. Is some agency that's trying to find this person. It's all based on this graphic novel, I think, with the same name, called Mind Management. This company, Off the Page Games, I think they take IP that have been put in comic books or other media and then turns them into board games. And yeah, this one's supposed to be great. One person is trying to outmaneuver and hide from the other players, and they do that on their own board, but then some things are put out here on the board as the rest of the players try to kind of trap them, and they can see where they were a certain number of turns ago. So you're keeping track of like the timeline of where they were when, or where they were and when. It's supposed to be great. It has a bunch of little mini modules in the game as well, where if you find the game too easy for the person hiding or too easy the other direction for the people that are seeking, then you can open these little extra boxes that add more pieces, more cards, to give kind of a buff or a nerf to the other side. So has a cool, I think they call it the shift system, has 14 of those sealed boxes in there. Anyways, very cool idea. It's one of the more well-loved games in that genre, so I am very excited to try it out. That is Mind Management. Next up is one I got in a trade pretty recently. This is a two-player skirmish game called Monolith Arena, and I think I have the Academics expansion in here too. Basically, it's a 1v1 game where you take a bunch of tiles from your faction. There's a human, a dwarf, an elf, and Lords of the Abyss factions, and then 2 more in that expansion that I mentioned. And then you play those tiles out on the board, and how you orient them is important, and you're trying to defeat your opponent's tiles. I haven't been able to play it. I sometimes really like a good 1v1 game, and this one kind of forgoes miniatures for more usable kind of tiles. I hope that the board state is easy to read, because it does look like there's a lot of information on those tiles, but yeah, we'll see. This one should be one I'm able to get played in the near future, I believe. It's based off of another game called Hiroshima Hex, which I know was also pretty popular. So that's one I'm excited to play. The theme can be a little overwhelming, I think, when people see the box. They're like, oh no, I don't think I'm ready for this. But I think it is quite a bit simpler than maybe the box kind of makes it feel. That is Monolith Arena. Okay, and then last up in this category is My Farm Shop. This is a game that is in a similar genre to games like Dice Forge and Space Base, where you're rolling dice, and then based on the result of those dice, you generate something. And in this one, you're trying to build your own farm. The thing that I've heard online is that it has a little bit more going on than Space Base, but still plays in like the same time frame. And many reviewers that I trust enjoy this one more than Space Base, which is interesting to me, because that had kind of been my favorite. But I think Dice Forge with the Rebellion expansion had kind of overtaken Space Base in my opinion. So we'll see which of these 3 I end up liking the best. But I am excited to try this one out. That is My Farm Shop. Okay, next up are a few games that I have been thinking about purging. First is Mountain Goats. This is a small game from Allplay that I actually think is a fun time. And the box is so small, it's an easy one to not purge, for shelf space at least. And it's a very simple game. You roll a couple of dice, and then you can move 1 or I think 2 of your goats up the mountain. And if you get to the top of the mountain, you're going to get some points for doing so and for staying up there for a certain amount of time. And then if someone else gets up there, they bump you back down. So it's a pretty simple dice rolling game, plays in like 10 or 15 minutes. It is pretty fun, but it's very luck based. I do have the 5-player expansion that adds another little board on the side to give you, I think, just 1 extra decision that you can make for a different way to get points. And I want to try it with that a couple more times before deciding if it's going to go or not. But Mountain Goats is a fun one. Just, yeah, got to decide if it's kind of in that realm of the introductory games that I want to teach new people and is like really crisp and perfect for that scenario, or if there are others that I would prefer. So Mountain Goats is the first one there. Next is one that I enjoyed quite a bit. It doesn't feel like a board game to me. It's called Micro Macro Crime City. And in this one, it's basically just a big, like, Where's Waldo picture search. And it comes with a couple, like, magnifying glasses. And you unfold this huge board that has tons of, like, pictures all over the whole thing that represent this city. And there are little envelopes, I think 10 or 12 of them in the box, that represent the different cases that you can try to solve. And so it gives you some clues, like where was this person and where did they go before that? And the cool thing about the map is that it kind of follows people through time. So you could follow these horse people, for example, and if you went back farther, you would likely see them a block or 2 over where they were right previous to being right there. So you can kind of follow a story and solve these cases based on that searchability of trying to find them. And so for a kind of a big group activity, it's kind of fun to do that and figure out what happened to these people who, were either killed or died in some silly way. The artwork is cute. I did have to buy just some like extra magnifying glass things on Amazon to help a little bit with if you play with a big group, you were going to want more of those likely. But yeah, it's a fun experience. I don't know that I'm really dying to play a ton more of them, but it did feel really unique the first few times that we pulled it out. But since we've completed all of the scenarios, I don't think it really has much staying power here for me at this point. But Micro Macro Crime City, it is a fun one. Next is Miyabi, and again, one I like, and I've enjoyed it when I've played it, but I wish the box was a little bit smaller. And yeah, I'm not sure if there are quite enough decisions here. The cool part about this tile laying game is that in each round, when you place a tile, you have to pull down one of your lanterns, and then you can no longer place kind of the primary square of that tile in that column again for the rest of the round. So you start to get really limited in where you can place things, and you can build up, and you'll get more points if you're able to build up. So it is very much a spatial puzzle in that way. And because of that, it's pretty fun, but very much just kind of multiplayer solitaire in that way. And yeah, I'm not sure. It has seemed fun, but I have quite a few tile placement games, and I don't know if it's quite as good or as fast as some of the others that I have. But Miyabi is a solid game from designer Michael Kiesling, who has designed a lot of games at this point. So it is a solid one. Would recommend it. Just not sure if I will be keeping it on the shelf. And last in this category is a very popular game. I only have 2 of dozens of boxes at this point, I believe, but it is Marvel United. I have the base version and this Enter the Spider-Verse box that comes with the 3 different Spider-Man and Green Goblin as a villain. And I do think this system, Marvel United, is fun. You basically play a couple cards on your turn, playing as one of the heroes trying to stop the villain. And then the next player that plays is a cooperative game, gets to activate the last card that you played before they play their cards. And I like that version of playing together, but I think everything else about the game, at least in these 2 sets that I have, the base set and the Spider-Man one, have seemed pretty standard fare for cooperative games. Try not to take too much damage, take out the mobs and the minions, and then try to do damage to the boss without meeting the fail condition. I've said this a few times, I'm just very picky with cooperative games. I do think the miniatures are fun and good, especially if we're going to paint them or something. That's definitely not something that I can do. I don't have a creative bone in my body. But yeah, it's a fun system for people that really love Marvel and like cooperative games. I can see how this one would be a huge hit, and it obviously has done very, very well. It has many, many different boxes with heroes and just spawned a DC version as well. So it'll probably be around for a long time. I just don't know if it will be around in my house for a long time. That is Marvel United. All right, and then I have a few favorite games that start with the letter M. Probably the lightest and simplest of the bunch is My Gold Mine. This is a very simple press your luck or push your luck game where you play as a dwarf in this mine, trying to get as much gold from the mine as you can, but there is a dragon in the mine, and throughout the round, he is going to move closer and closer to the exit, and if you have not exited by the time he gets in your space, and the amount of space in the mine is continuing to shrink, then you lose everything you have gained that round. And you play 3 rounds, and whoever has the most gold at the end of the game is the winner. How you play is you draw a card from the top of either the kind of the dragon deck, where you're exploring in the mine, trying to find gold, or from the exit deck, which will move you closer to the exit. But if you ever get to the exit, you have to leave immediately, and you want to get more gold than your opponent. So it's all about that push and pull of how long do I dare stay, and is the dragon going to hit me? And it's a very simple game with a bit of luck, which sometimes I'm not a huge fan of, but for a game this short that is great for introducing people to this genre. I think it hits a very, very good balance there. It can be a little tricky to find. I had to import it from a European shop, but it's not a very expensive game, so even with a few extra dollars of shipping from Europe, it wasn't incredibly expensive. So that is my Goldmine, a very fun introductory level push your luck game. Next up is a game that replaced Seven Wonders for me, and this is Moon from Sinister Fish Games. This is I think it even says here on the box, a pick and pass base building game for 1 to 5 players. Plays very similar to Seven Wonders. You have a hand of cards, and you'll play one on your turn, and then pass the rest of your hand of cards on to the next player. It's called drafting. And in this game, it has a few unique wrinkles to that. There isn't really a back of the box to show you too much, but here's a little bit. There is one specialist card in the hand that you're given that always stays with the hand, so it can't be drafted, and is kind of a special ability that you can play while you have that hand of cards. So you have that extra wrinkle, and you're building up this moon base with cards that will help you produce resources, of which there is water and organics and a couple other things, and then you're trying to have the moon base with the best reputation. So it is kind of about, all about point scoring, but you also get to use with your rovers the tableau of the other players. So I could send one of my rovers to another player's board to get something, but then that rover becomes theirs, and rovers are used for tie breaking and some other things. So it has a little bit more interaction, and it's a little more in depth, and I like the theme a lot better than something like Seven Wonders. So really like Moon. I need to play it a few more times to see if it will fall in my very favorite drafting games or not, but for now it is definitely a really solid game that I like. That is Moon. Okay, next up is another game in the Legends of D6 series. This is Mushroom Ale. In this one, you are trying to brew the best ales out of mushrooms, just like the title suggests. You have to grow the mushrooms in your farm, and then you will case them in these barrels. And the more kind of that you're able to case, and I think the longer they sit in there, the more points they can be worth at the end of the game. But there might be times when you have to break one of your casks, is the right word, actually, not case, casks open, or else you would fail, and you need to be able to like re-roll and things like that. So then that would get rid of all the scoring opportunity from that cask, but had helped you with the flexibility of being able to redo and re-roll some things. So it's a fun balance of those things. Also a bit shorter than some of the other games in this series. I think it is a solid one. Probably not my favorite of the of that series of games, but I really like this one. That is Mushroom Ale. Okay, my favorite kind of Jenga-like dexterity game is Men at Work. In this game, you are placing out these big, I think they call them girders, a bunch of kind of wooden sticks out that are kind of the base for the construction site here. And you flip over a card on your turn, and it will tell you what you have to do, if you have to put out a worker or a new beam. And if you have to put out a worker, there will be some condition with it, like he might need to be carrying a brick, or he might need to have a beam on his shoulder. And yeah, this is definitely a step up from Jenga. It's a lot more difficult. It's very fun, though, in that difficulty, because everyone is like kind of waiting with bated breath to see if everything's going to fall over. And you have a few different, even if it does tumble, which is going to often, the game's not over. You have 3 safety certificates generally, and you just lose one of them. And then the next player has to use this little hook tool to clean up the work site before they can continue with their turn. And if they knocked anything over while they were cleaning, their turn's over immediately too, and they lose a safety certificate. So there's a bit of like a, how do I clean this up well aspect to it as well. And eventually, as you're going through these cards, one of the cards will say that the supervisor has showed up. And when that happens, then you're trying to build vertically, and whoever places a piece that is the highest piece in the construction site will get some bonus employee of the month tokens. And so it really becomes tricky. You're trying to stack things really high, putting bricks and beams on these really cool construction worker meeples arms is very tricky. I have shaky hands, so even though I love this game and think it's excellent, I am not very good at it. But even if you're not, it's fun. You don't die immediately like in Jenga. If you accidentally knock something over, you've got a few attempts there, even if you fail a couple times. So Men at Work is really a great dexterity game. Like it a lot. Okay, next up is kind of a classic at this point. It's had a couple different versions, and I have the latest version. This is Mission Red Planet. I like this game because it can play a large group, and a lot of each round is played simultaneously, and so it plays pretty quick, even with a pretty large group of up to 6. In this game, you have a hand of 9 cards that do 9 different things. They will either launch a ship to Mars, or let you put some of your astronauts in a ship, or maybe even sabotage a ship that's about to launch by blowing it up. And you're trying to launch your astronauts to Mars, to these different spots to get resources, and then you do some area majority scoring for the different regions of Mars as well. Plays really quick, it's fun. Even if somebody blows up a few of your astronauts, you don't feel too bad because it's not a very long game and you'll get them back shortly anyways. Yeah, this one is just it's a great game. I really like Mission Red Planet for nights when you've got 5 or 6 people, which is generally too much for most kind of Euro games that are best at 3 or maybe 4. So Mission Red Planet it's a winner for me. Okay, a couple more here. I have Meadow and the expansion, which I think was called Downstream, here in this box. And this is a fun tableau building game that has a cool element of how you draft the cards that you're putting into your tableau. So first of all, your tableau has to start with like a ground cards, and then on top of those, you have to put cards where you meet the requirements to place them, and you can use the icons that are showing in your tableau to place the new ones out. Not extremely original in that, but it is a fun system of, okay, I put this card here, but it's overlapping that symbol now, and so that symbol is no longer available for me to use to in kind of the engine building way of being able to play new cards out. Each round you have 4 of these tokens, and you'll on your turn be able to place them in one of the notches, and then you move that number of spaces in, and that's the card that you'll draft. And so there's a bit of blocking with those notches as well. And then with the Downstream expansion, there's even another board focused on water and moving your canoeing meeple down the river as well. The artwork in this game is really, really great, and it's just fun to build that tableau of cards. There's a bit of information on the cards, but it's done with really nice iconography. You don't have to read a bunch to figure out what the cards do or what the requirements are. In fact, there aren't any words on the cards at all that I can remember. So Meadow is a really good one. It can be a little bit long if you're playing with 4 players, but I generally play this one with my wife, and at 2 I think it's really, really great. So that is Meadow, and with the Downstream expansion. And last up, in my favorite games that start with the letter M, is The Magnificent. This is a dice drafting game where you are building your own circus, and you have to manage a few different parts of your circus. You will be expanding your camp by getting these tiles, and you'll also be staging and putting on shows in order to kind of have big turns where you get a lot of points. There's a few mechanisms that kind of tie into the dice drafting. The color that you take is tied to these actions, as well as the strength that you take. You also get to move kind of your caravan around these rondel these tracks basically here that go in a circle, and you get more resources when you do that. It's just a really solid dice drafting game. And dice drafting is a mechanism that I've really started to love lately with this game. And then shortly after, I played the White Castle, which will be coming up in video W in a little while. And yeah, I just really like how creative designers can be with just, if we change the color and all you've got on the D6 is 6 sides, but man, you can do a lot with dice drafting, which is crazy to me that they don't have to come up with something more unique than that. So anyways, the Magnificent is a really great dice drafting game. So that is going to do it for the games in my collection that start with the letter M. Have you played any of these games? What is your favorite game that starts with the letter M? There are many, many more, obviously, than the ones that I have listed here. There are thousands of new board games that come out every year, so it's impossible for someone like me who I buy all of my games. I don't get games for free or anything, so I can't have every game in the world, but I would love to hear which game is your favorite that starts with the letter M. Make sure to check out the other videos I have in this series, as well as the other content I have on the channel. Just done playthroughs of Arcs and Harvest recently, which are two pretty new and hot games. It's a lot of fun to play those with my brother and my wife. Make sure to join our monthly giveaway, and I will see you on the next video where we go over my games that start with the letter N. Thanks so much, and I will see you on that next one.